Canada has recently revamped its food guide. The focus has shifted from portion sizes to more of a holistic approach to food management in the Canadian society. Not only are we taking into account the food groups more generally, there is also a focus on the practices associated with purchasing, preparing, and even consuming our food. It is now recognized that there is more to our food culture in Canada than the specific amounts of food we put into our body. In this light, there is a section in the food guide that puts an emphasis on culture and cultural foods. Canada is a conglomeration of various individuals with all kinds of ethnic backgrounds, traditions, and ideals when it comes to food, which is a key component and trait of almost every culture. So how do these various foods fit into the new framework of the Canadian Food Guide? The food guide focuses on 4 areas in relation to the kinds of food that are recommended for consumption. These groups include eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, choosing whole grains and protein foods, as well as choosing foods with healthy fats. These healthy fats can also chemically be defined as being unsaturated, as opposed to their unhealthy counterparts, the saturated fats. There is a direct correlation between our health and the foods that we consume. One study that began in the mid-1950s focused on 7 different countries around the globe, examining the incidence of coronary heart disease in relation to the lifestyles of the various ethnic groups who live there. It was called the 7 Countries Study. It was noted that there was a correlation between diet and the likelihood of developing coronary heart disease, particularly when looking at the amount of saturated and unsaturated fat consumed in the diet.
The first country we will take a look at is Finland. The Finnish diet consists of unusually high saturated fat. This has directly increased the number of people who get coronary heart disease, or CHD. High intake of saturated fats also has an effect on your cholesterol levels. Both trans and saturated fats will raise your level of LDL cholesterol, which can also lead to heart disease. The Finnish diet also has a high level of sodium. High sodium intake can increase blood pressure, which causes strain on the heart. An adult aged 14 to 50, according to Canada's Food Guide, should have 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day. In the average Finnish diet, people are still getting at least 300 milligrams more per day than needed. Former Yugoslavia, which is present-day Croatia and Serbia, are interesting because they have 2 types of diets, the Eastern European diet and the Mediterranean diet. The Eastern European diet is similar to Finland in that it has high intake of animal fatty acids. The Mediterranean diet, however, is the opposite in that the majority of fat intake is unsaturated fats. It has a higher consumption of fish, olive oil, fruits and vegetables, with a lower amount of meat and animal fat. The Mediterranean diet fits in Canada's Food Guide by having higher intake of unsaturated fats and limiting saturated and trans fat intake. The Eastern European, like that of Finland, does not fit well into Canada's Food Guide for the same reasons of high intake of saturated fats.
Another country examined in this study was Japan. The Japanese diet is rich in rice, fish, and vegetables. The consumption of fish surpasses that of meat in the diet, and this has led to significant health outcomes for the Japanese people. According to the International Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, food supply quantities per capita per year of total fish or seafood and total meat in Japan were estimated to be 56.6 and 45.9 kilograms respectively in 2009. Contrast that with figures in the USA, where 24.1 of fish and seafood and 120.2 kilograms of meat were consumed in 2009. In the Japan Public Health Center study, there was found to be an inverse association between fish omega-3 fatty acids and cancers of the proximal colon and liver, heart attacks, and male diabetes. Saturated fat intakes was associated with an increased risk of prostate cancer and heart attack. The 7 countries study showed a similar outcome in the low incidence of coronary heart disease in Japan relative to the other countries studied.
In conclusion, we have noted that there is a place for ethnic food in the Canada's Food Guide. The new Food Guide even has a whole new section that talks about the importance of tradition and culture in foods. However, just because it is ethnic does not mean it is healthy. As we see here in this chart, Finland and Serbia both have a high mortality of coronary heart disease, while Japan has a very low one. Just like any food you eat, do your research before you eat it, and then you can decide for yourself if it is healthy or not.